Inside Texas Politics.
Good morning and welcome to Inside Texas Politics. I'm Jason Whiteley. We begin this morning in Washington and the threat of shutting down Homeland Security, plus a new development in a Keystone pipeline that would stretch into Texas. Dallas Republican Congressman Sessions is with us from the U.S. Capitol to talk about that and more. And joining the questioning, as always, Bud Kennedy, columnist with the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Good to see you guys. Congressman, thanks for being with us here.
Morning, Pete.
Thank you very much.
Let's start with Keystone, something you do support. It appears though that President Obama and the environmentalists aren't the only ones who are against this. The company building the pipeline is now using eminent domain in Nebraska, taking private property and forcing the pipeline on at least 90 homeowners. Is that something you support in this case?
What I support is local people making their own local decisions. In the interest of the country, it's important to note that our decision to be able to allow this means that we will be sending several $100 billion to our friends in Canada as opposed to those in the Middle East that are not always our friends. And secondly, we will not have to fight as many wars overseas for security of our oil and energy. And I think it makes common sense for Canada and the United States to make this happen. I hope the people, wherever they are in Nebraska, will be able to resolve their differences.
Congressman, let's talk about Homeland Security. You guys, House Republicans, have funded Homeland Security, a bill you passed recently, but Senate Republicans haven't acted yet and don't necessarily seem on board with the government shutdown either. What's going to happen? We're about 5 weeks away from funding running out.
Well, I think that we're doing it 5 weeks out is an indication we want to shut down the government. With that said, we do not believe that what the president done with his, what I believe is very unwise and unconstitutional action that he has taken with having a fee-for-service part of the Department of Homeland Security to issue visas to people that he has done on his own as opposed to following the law or having the legislature, the Congress involved in this, is a mistake. So we have been straightforward about this. We put it in the bill. We have passed it. It passed overwhelmingly in the House of Representatives. We'll find out what the Senate does, and we will work together. But the president needs to understand these activities, up to and including what happened with 70,000 illegals, mostly children that came to the United States in the middle of the summer, cost us during this appropriation cycle $500 million. We did not have that in our budget. We did not have that in our policy. The president was unwise and illegally and unlawfully has done these activities, and we're not going to fund it.
Congressman, let me ask you about immigration. One of the guests at the State of the Union address, one of Michelle Obama's guests, was Ana Zamora from Dallas, who's here on deferred action. You know, one of the Dreamer children. Do you feel like it was appropriate to have her as a guest? Should she be allowed to stay in America?
Well, if I were the president, I'd feel sorry for my inaction that I had done when I promised when I was running for president what I did my first 4 years. The facts of the case are over the last 4 years we've had a divided House and Senate. Over 300 bills from the House the Senate chose not to take up or even debate or vote on. The actions that we need to take on Homeland Security and taking care of our border, as well as immigration issues, will be decided by the United States Congress, and we'll see if the president can then sign the bill. We believe we have better ideas about how to deal with this. The bottom line, the American people have a say about the guests that are in our country.
Congressman, let's stick with that for a moment. You've made a couple of stops on the southern border this weekend, going to San Diego, California, and down to McAllen, Texas as well. What's the whole point of this trip to the border right now?
On Monday, when I return, I will be involved in, as chairing the House Rules Committee, the border security bill. Chairman Michael McCall from Austin, Texas, had a hearing on Wednesday night in the Capitol. That hearing has produced a bill. We will have the bill before the Rules Committee. I'm using this time to prepare and get ready, looking at the issues and the ideas, the men, the women, and the challenges that are before us and the answers, talking with people, real live people on the border with issues and ideas to keep our country safe. And that's what our job is. We intend to be successful on the trip, but we intend for the legislation to match the need.
And tell us briefly about that, what Congressman McCall's bill is, because if I recollect, it didn't make it to the floor for a House vote last Congress.
Well, it did not. It did not make it, and that was because we understood that the United States Senate was not going to take the bill up. We have gone back, re-looked at it, re-verified. and updated the bill to make sure that it looks at expressly the items which are necessary for border security. As you know, we have outside pressures, people who are trying to come into this country, new threats against the United States. So it's slightly updated in as much as the directions that we give the department about what we believe priorities are, and we'll work with this administration as we do on a day-to-day basis, but moving forward to protect America.
And I want to switch to politics for just a minute and ask you about 2016. Since you were here last and visited, we have the reemergence of Mitt Romney, and Romney talking now about running again, discussing with Jeb Bush and with other candidates. Is it good for the Republican Party to have Mitt Romney back in the campaign picture? Is it good to have more candidates or fewer candidates this time?
I would say that Mitt Romney evidently has made a decision to try his entry. I think it's really an ask on his part. What's the appetite? Are people ready for this again? I find Jeb Bush's energy, his understanding of Florida, it's a state that we would have to win if we're going to win the White House, and we are. So I find Jeb Bush's entry very intriguing, and I'm looking at Jeb Bush as probably the person who would stand the best chance. The question is, do we want to win? And I say if we want to win, we're going to have to get behind someone who can win states and bring people to the Republican Party with a keen understanding of the issues that this country needs, and it is jobs and freedom and opportunity, and I think Jeb is very strong in that suit.
Congressman, let's touch on the State of the Union here briefly. The country has added 11 million jobs the last 5 years, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. There are 500,000 fewer local, state, and federal jobs out there as well. How is that not good news to a fiscally conservative Republican, rather, like you?
Well, first of all, we did add those jobs, but that's not a net. There are fewer people working today in America than there were in 1980. We're about equal to where I was when I graduated from college in 1978. To have fewer people working in the United States than going back 30 years is not a good sign. Secondly, what looms ahead is the Obamacare still is in law, and it is the biggest reason why employers do not have full-time employees. They have part-time employees. And last, what looms ahead is what's called the Cadillac tax, and that is a tax on business and people's health care just in 2 years from now. So what we need to see is that Obamacare rules and regulations and taxes are meaning that we will continue to slide backwards. We may create jobs, but they're not full-time jobs, they're not career jobs, and it is a mistake. And anyone that believes that this is better or would believe what the president's talking about is a positive sign needs to be an economist, and they will recognize it's bad news for our future.
Sounds good. Congressman Pete Sessions, good to see you again. We'll be watching, see what happens Monday night and with the 114th Congress. Thank you.
Great.